Cool. We're going to go live. We are going live. Just going to give this 1 second to begin. Here I was fiddling with my microphone. So there's a little bit of delay. Hi everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you for joining me. And I thought I would do another edition, another insert into moodboarding live. If you haven't seen the first two, basically just talking through the process of an upcoming test shoot that I am lining up, that I'm doing just to help push my portfolio forward, and also just generate some work that I've got to share. Shoots have been few and far between recently, so it's always nice to work on a personal project and kind of try and push my own work and push it out there. So today I'm going to kind of go over what I've gone through since the first two editions of this sort of like live series that it appears that I'm doing. And if you've got any questions or anything about how I'm working or how you work and whether you want some input on that, let me know in the live chat. There's probably like a 10 to 15 second delay, so don't despair if the reply isn't immediate. Got a little light up here today. Thought I'd add a little extra spice to it. Let me just shift over to OBS so we are a little bit so I can see what I'm up to. Sorry, just trying to concentrate on two things. Check out the lockdown here. It is in full swing, but I think I'm just going to grow it out. Okay, looks like we're all good. Check the bag under the eyes. I've got a big window in front of me lighting here, and then a little clip light just to make it nice and light. It looks like we're all good. Let me know if you can all hear me all right, but I think we should be good. Coming through the microphone here. Last week I did it with the microphone and everything switched on, but because I had my AirPods in, the AirPods kind of overruled the microphone, and I did the whole blooming thing after setting up and everything with my AirPods in, so it's a little bit frustrating. Firstly, let's get some housekeeping done. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Rich Maciver. I am a commercial and advertising photographer based here in London, originally from Scotland, if you can't tell from my accent. And on my YouTube channel, I kind of try and do a little bit of behind the scenes. I do kind of sit down talking videos like this where I'll either talk through my creative process or lessons I've learned along my journey going from Scotland, uni, assisting, now shooting my own stuff and trying to progress my own career forward even in these difficult times. So that's the kind of stuff you'll find on this channel. If you're not subscribed already, make sure you have. Hit that like button, as they say, and leave me a comment. Let me know how you got here. Thanks, Helen, for the "we can hear you." Very welcome. So I'm going to chat through my working process, but also it's a little bit of a Q&A if you want to ask anything about your own process or give me any feedback on my process. So I hope this stream is healthy enough. I've changed the latency, if anyone knows anything about streaming, so I can get a bit more instant feedback on the comments. Let's head over here to OBS and I will change my scene here. Oh, that's one thing I've been doing recently is I started working with a retoucher. Normally I do all my own retouching, but there are professionals out there who solely retouch, and as much as I hate to admit it, perhaps they are more efficient than I. And also you've got to start thinking about when you're working with a client and you value your time at X per hour, how long is it taking you to retouch that? And is your X per hour greater than the retouchers? And therefore, giving it to them would technically save you money, especially if you're billing your client for a retouch. So I thought I would show you guys a little bit of the retouching process that I've gone through. Let's have a little look here. So this is the original TIFF. This has already got a grade on it from, sorry, I keep knocking the microphone. This has got a grade on it from Capture One. I shoot tethered to Capture One, and then I will put a grade over it there, and then I worked into it a little bit more before exporting the TIFF from Capture One, and then I sent it to the retoucher. So there's a few obvious things here. We have the light with the blue gel is still in shot there, and the stand with the little red clip there. So we have to get that out. These tiles on the ceiling aren't great. I don't know if you can see that there. It's quite dark on my second monitor here, but and I've got the light reflecting from behind me. But these tiles are pretty ugly. We're not getting enough of that neon sign which was in the room into it. There's a few other little things, like I wasn't so keen on the strain on his neck that's there. You know, it's just not the most visually pleasing. So if we go to the next stage, we had one round of feedback from the retoucher. I'd already worked with them on a previous image, so I was just like, yeah, kind of do what you did, and then they fed it back to me, and there's a few markups. So I just took this into Photoshop and got the pen tool, used my little pad here to kind of draw a few bits on and type up stuff. So you know, they'd taken the highlights up a little bit too much. If we skip to the final image, we can see where are we? 199 web. Sorry. Yes, we can see they've taken up the highlights quite a lot on the cheek here, although this is actually the final one, so we did take it down a little bit from where it was. So I just made a note of that. The background, the retoucher had taken it up quite a bit, and also the way that they had done the ceiling, there wasn't like an obvious join ceiling to roof. So there's a few little things there. There's also a little loss of texture where they had taken the light out. It was kind of an obvious clone tool. I don't know if you're familiar with the clone tool, you'll know that it leaves like, sometimes it can leave a smudge rather than borrow the true texture from wherever you're cloning from. So there's a few little bits of feedback like that, and then this is where we got to in the end. So let me get the original and the final one highlighted, put that full screen. We have original and final. So we've got little things like just filling in little bits of hair here as well. Just any little thing that could be a distraction visually. Creases and things up on his right hand shoulder and on his torso. Brightened up the blue on his right leg there. Brought through the red clip and everything like that. And just brightened up the white light on the front of each of them. So quite nice. It was good to work through that process, and yeah, hopefully going forward I'll be looking to work with the retoucher a little bit more. So let me get up my mood board and I will get into where I finished off last time. We go into mood board in here. Bom, bom, bom. Get the PDF up. Should have really prepared this before we got into it here. So this is where we left it. If you haven't seen the first and second episode, it's the last two videos that have been uploaded to my channel. So we had the original mind map here, where I was just jotting down any sort of rough ideas of things that came to mind, whether that was visually, things that attracted me, what am I bookmarking most on things like Pinterest and Instagram and stuff like that. What am I shooting most kind of just whilst I walk around? What colours am I attracted to? What textures am I attracted to? And then began to research other photographers who kind of fitted in or who'd shot things that are similar to the type of stuff that I was writing down here in this mind map. Develop those blues and warms a little bit further, started to bring in different shapes and silhouettes which kind of mirror my own work but perhaps push on a little bit further. They perhaps are just that little extra bit out of my comfort zone. And then I began to kind of really try and narrow it down. Like there's kind of 3 rough ideas here of where I could take things. So let's jump into the updated PDF here, PDF Mark II. Let's just open this up and make sure. Whilst it's doing that, I will make sure that our stream is all good. We're all fit and healthy here. Nice, fantastic stuff. Okay, so this is where we left it, and then so I went. The next stage was really, okay, how can I take these things that I've visually kind of been attracted to and that I want to shoot, how can I really start narrowing them down? So the next stage was perhaps putting together a colour palette that we could stick to throughout the shoot. We've kind of got our hero image here of this blue hair, these 3 figures with the blue hair dye, and I just found how that is shot, the warm tones on the skin matched with that pastel blue, really striking. And I'm starting to think, how can I perhaps start to integrate that into my shoot? How can I borrow that idea but put my own spin on it and bring it in further? So in last week's stream we looked at Jacob Sutton's work. Jacob Sutton is like a high-end kind of advertising and editorial photographer. He incorporates a lot of movement into his work. I don't know if he has a history in dance, but he does so much stuff with dancers, and it's not quite like a typical sports fitness shoot. It's definitely got more of an editorial, sometimes advertising spin on it. So I'm starting to think, how can I bring that into my own work? Because at the moment, if you're familiar with my portfolio, you know I shoot a lot of sport and kind of active lifestyle stuff, but it's almost very obvious stuff. Like I'll go to a running track and I'll shoot a couple of people running around. Sure, I'll try and shoot the more lifestyle side of things, and I'll try and shoot the little in between bits, but it's perhaps not quite that far out of my comfort zone to the point where it's giving the viewer a little something else, where if you were scrolling through Instagram, it might stop you. Whereas typically, if you just see someone running about, despite how nicely shot is, you might just scroll past that on Instagram. So anyway, that's kind of the things that I'm looking at in these sessions to bring on my work a little bit further, and kind of ultimately we just want to grab the attention of potential clients. So I could go and shoot the most outrageous thing, but ultimately that's going to grab the attention of the potential client, and then they might just want me to shoot something that looks very e-com-esque. But regardless of that, you need to try and push your work in a certain way so it's going to stand out, so it's going to be different enough to grab the attention of potential clients. So we've got that element of movement, and we've got that perhaps influence of the dyed hair, starting to combine these things. Also in the bottom right here, we've got like incidental movements, and also questioning how the clothing could enhance the shoot, or enhance and exaggerate the subject's movements. So that's something I want to kind of look into. And then in the top left, we've got different things. It's quite sort of like pink and earthy tones, which kind of grabbed my attention. This feels a little removed from the direction that I feel like it's going, but it's yeah, something worth considering. Okay, so I've got a rough idea, and now I want to move on to locations. Just take a little little coffee break here because I've blethered non-stop for 14 minutes. Right down the microphone. Brilliant. Yeah, nice. Live. Cool. Where are we? We're all good. We're all healthy. We've got our volume. We've got our scenes up and everything. So yes, if you didn't watch the first 2 episodes, I've been working with a mentor this month, someone who is in the industry, who is at a place where that I view to be pretty successful, well established, solid client base. All the things that I'm looking to do in my career, they have done as well, and I've started working with them recently just to kind of gauge how they where they feel I'm at, and also to have that access to be able to ask them questions of, am I marketing myself right? I go to all this effort to shoot these pictures, but am I showing them to the right person? Am I doing the correct things with my mailer? Um, sure, I post it to Instagram, but are the correct people seeing it? Am I following them? Am I messaging them from time to time, either on the mailer or even on Instagram DMs or LinkedIn? Excuse me. So it's little things like that. It's great to have feedback from someone who is established in the industry. So that's been a massive eye opener for me. If you are self employed, if you run your own business, particularly at the moment, where feedback from your peers might be limited, as we're kind of the majority of people around the world are working from home, it's always great to kind of seek out a mentor, someone whose work you admire, or not just their work, but how they have kind of established their own business, whether it's the same business as you, and how they, what else are they doing in their life? What other streams of revenue do they have? And kind of, it's good to surround yourself with successful people. And working from home, working on your own, that can be difficult sometimes. Alid, more questions for you. How did you approach them? Were they offering the service already, or did you cold call them to speak? So yeah, this is an interesting one because a lot of people do look for mentors, and I personally had assisted a lot of different photographers who um, who, whilst I was assisting them, were kind of mentors for me. When we're on set and we've got some downtime or we're traveling to a job, I can nudge them and be like, I'm shooting this. What do you think? What's my next steps? And things like that. But when you're out shooting your own stuff, that feedback is difficult to come by. So there's a few different platforms. The one that springs to mind is a platform called The Dots. It's the-dots.com, I think. I think it's mainly UK-based creatives, but there's probably a wide range of people on there. And they do have mentoring schemes where it's all voluntary. So it might be more established art directors or photographers who are just on the platform from time to time, and they're offering their services. So that is worth checking out. I can't, for the mentor that I'm working with, I can't remember exactly how I found. I was aware of his work because he's a well-established commercial photographer here in London. So just through research over time, I've come across his work a few times. But then I also saw on his website that he did workshops and mentoring. So I do pay him a fee each month for his time. I get X amount of hours on Zoom calls, the odd phone call from time to time if it's easier to just chat over the phone, and kind of like unlimited emails. Like I said in the last stream, I'm perhaps not going to start recommending him on my YouTube just yet. I want to kind of get through that process first, and to get to a point where I feel I can kind of recommend and pass on his details to my viewers. Just because I don't want to recommend people because it's not cheap, and yeah, I don't want to recommend anything that I'm not totally certain on. So, are you looking, Alid, for a mentor at the moment? Is that something that you are actively interested in, actively seeking out, or is it just more of a curious thing? Let me know. Whilst I wait for you to get back to me, because there's about a 30-second delay, I will go on to locations. So normally this is the point where I fall down with my shoots. I get to this point where everything great is planned. Yeah, get a brilliant dancer, someone who's really strong, well established, an active practicing dancer. I'm going to have this kind of styling, this kind of hair and makeup, and we'll shoot it at this beautiful location. So at this point, I had to be completely honest with, because I'm working through this with my mentor, and at this point, I had to be completely honest with him and said, look, this is the point where I normally fall down. This is why, if you go on my website, the vast majority of my stuff is plain backgrounds, plain backdrops, because the idea kind of gets whittled further and further down to the point where I'm just like, look, I've got access to this studio down the road, we'll shoot it there. And I still get a hair makeup involved and I still get styling involved, but it's just not got that extra sparkle, extra push. So perhaps it's for these reasons that I am taking a few weeks to plan and put this together. You know, if I wanted, I could put a shoot together for tomorrow, go either shoot outside or go, you know, in theory, go shoot outside or at a studio and get, you know, hair, makeup and stylists that I know involved and speak to the local modelling agency and get all them involved in all that sort of stuff. But I don't want to do that. I want to spend a bit of time. I want to get a beautiful location and just kind of escalate it to the point where, well, let's bring up. I'm kind of researching different photographers at the moment, and Trunk Archive are a licensing platform for super high-end photographers. They're based in the US, so they have a huge variety of different photographers. This is Boo George. His work, for example, is always shot on these beautiful locations. Sure, there is some bits where it's against a plain backdrop, but it's within like a lovely house or on this epic beach and stuff like that. I think he actually lives just around the corner in London. Irish photographer, brilliant. Like, I totally love his stuff. But that's the kind of level that ultimately I want to get to. So to get there, you need to put in the time, effort, research to elevate your work. And ultimately, that's what this is all about for me. This is about elevating my work so I can begin to work for sort of like the Vogues and high-end sports brands and, you know, the sort of level of clients that people like Boo, George and others get. Alid, let me just show your, I think because you said kick my ass, I think your comment got held for review there, but thank you. Yep, like you think I would work well being held accountable to somebody. Yeah, absolutely. I need somebody to kick my ass. Yeah, yeah. So we can get that accountability. I think I was just talking to my mum actually this morning about accountability, and you can hold yourself accountable to a point, and I think that super successful people of this world are experts in holding themselves accountable, and that, you know, they manage to drive themselves on all the time. But if you find yourself in a position, especially where you're self-employed, Helen, I can hold you accountable. Yes, Helen. Um, that's my other half, by the way. If you don't, that's my lady. If you aren't familiar with that, aren't familiar with her. What was I saying? Yes, if you can't hold yourself accountable, and if you are self-employed, if that doesn't come as like normal or intuitively to you, it's always good to have someone to hold you accountable. Even better than having someone who you live closely with hold you accountable to avoid friction, shall we say. I think it's really good to have an industry expert on hand to hold you accountable, to look at your work and say, well, actually, this is where it's kind of crap, and this is how you're not marketing it properly. And you said last week that you were going to email this person, but you haven't. So thus, you are not getting the work that you want. So, you know, it's let me just change that camera here. It's great. I think it's great to have that kind of that accountability, and to have someone hold you like that, and really have someone in your life who you don't want to let down. I mean, we don't want to let down our loved ones that are close to us, but when it comes to professional work, sometimes you just need that person. So, for example, for me, working with a mentor, if they set me a task and I don't see it through, that's kind of embarrassing. And no one likes to be embarrassed, and no one likes to be caught out and be like, oh, stripped bare, and the facts kind of laid out in front of them, to the point where it's like, yeah, you messed up. This is why you're at the level you're at, and this is why you're not progressing to where you want to get to. So I think that's very strong. I think that's a very strong thing. Yeah, Aled, to have someone hold you accountable, because ultimately I think there are so many capable and excellent photographers out there who shoot amazing stuff, and you might go on their website and they've only got 3 or 4 shoots and they look amazing, but no one's seen it, and they're not pushing it out to anyone, and they're not getting the work that they are getting the work that they deserve, but they're not getting the work that they could get. So, long-winded answer, probably like a 10-minute answer to your question there, Aled, but or it wasn't even a question, observation. Yeah, someone to hold you accountable. So I guess you could get that as well if you join Facebook creative groups, things like that. And some people I've heard, kind of keeping in touch with peers and things like that, and kind of almost requesting to have themselves held accountable. But there is holes to that. There's definitely, it's definitely going to fall down a little bit, because it's kind of favors, isn't it? It's not a professional. The thing about paying a mentor is there's a transaction there. That it's like, I've given you money, so I want to get the most out of it. And your mentor is like, you've paid me to do this, so I'm going to kick your ass. So you better do what I tell you, because I'm the expert, and I'm the expert. That's why you've paid me. I think there's something in that, for me anyway. Hmm. But Helen does hold me accountable quite often, all the time. Let's go back to the mood board. Boo George's work. If you're not familiar with his work, check it out. It's the way he lights stuff is just, yeah, incredible. And I've spoken to people who've assisted him before, and he knows his shit. Yeah, good guy. Whether he does know shit or whether his assistant was just saying that, who knows. So, locations, factors to consider: logistics, probability, especially in the time that we're in. So, just logistically, it kind of rules out this middle one here, Belmont House, which is in Wiltshire, which is like a 2-hour drive for me. So, traveling that sort of distance, even though it is for work, and I guess it is permitted at this moment, it's a bit, yeah, agree, completely agree, Alad. Good stuff. Belmont House, 2 hours away. It's a bit out of the question at the moment, so that leaves us with Craxton Studios in Hempstead and MPR in Bronsbury Park. I found these on a location website called JJ Locations. They primarily deal with locations in the south of England, mainly around London, but also for kind of, a lot of shoots that come out of London will travel to locations around the south of England. So they have quite a wide library of incredible locations, as well as studios, and pretty much anything you need to hire for a shoot, you can find them on that JJ Locations. You do end up paying an agency fee, so I am trying to kind of barter them down a little bit and say, look, it's personal work. I'm I'm just starting out, and my mentor recommended getting in touch with you, things like that, to try and downplay it. to get the best fee I can. I went a little bit quiet on them. Hopefully they're not watching this. I went a little bit quiet on them just while I try and suss things out, and they've kind of nudged me. So I'm hoping they're gonna come back to me and say, well, okay, we can come back to you with a cheaper price. So here's where I work. Here's where I kind of visually look at this. Let me just get my zoom in here. So if you imagine this corner of this room here in Belmont House, or probably somewhere else that I'm going to use, Craxton Studios, how amazing is this place? I would probably like get these horrible red chairs out of this like dance hall area, probably leave the piano in, get a lot of the rubbish off, not rubbish, sorry, get a lot of the pictures off the wall, obviously get rid of that fire exit sign, see if we can take the curtains down maybe, have it a little backlit, things you need to research. What time will the sun be coming through that window? Do you want it to be backlit if you're in here and the sun's coming in? Little details like that are going to help you have a successful shoot. The great thing about this studio is it's kind of like a house as well. There's a few rooms. You see this image in the middle here. There's a few rooms like this, so it will help me tell a story, perhaps of a dancer kind of practicing at home. They have a lavish home. Obviously won't show anything, any big too wide shots to make it too unrealistic, but I guess that's another thing. I'm always caught up in it being too realistic. It's a fashion editorial of sorts, so we can be a bit unrealistic. So visually, I'm looking at these two big glass doors with the wooden ceiling, and I'm looking at these references of the dancer. Let me just see, we're zoomed in here. We're a little bit laggy on the live stream, apologies for that. But I'm looking at this dancer, right? I'm looking at those shapes and movements. I'm thinking about the color palette that we spoke about earlier. What if it's a model with short hair, with some flowy fabrics, and they're kind of doing like contemporary dance in this area? I'm not a massive fan of the blue carpet, but I'll probably shoot up to the ceiling, kind of, or try and ignore the carpet and get some full length shots somewhere else. And we've also got the garden there, which would lend itself well to some of the previous references where we're kind of working with like flowy fabrics, stuff like that, like in the garden, things like that. Now, I'm a little apprehensive about the dancer. Also, is it a dance story? Is it like a fashion editorial? How am I going to tie that all together? Like, does that make sense? Is that two completely separate ideas? There is one image, I think I have it here in this next slide, in the bottom right here, of a dancer. I can't remember where I found this image. I found it on Pinterest, but I can't remember who the photographer is. There's a little lag on this. Apologies for my screen scrolling jumpiness. But that girl in the bottom right there, let me just... Oh man, I've not got my screen share on. What am I talking about? I've stuck to my big camera. Apologies for the last 2 minutes of that. I'll go back to all these things that I was just saying. So hopefully that still made sense, even though I was kind of blethering on here. Oh man, so this is Belmont House. These are some of the locations that I've been looking at. As I was saying, we have this room here at Craxton Studios, where I kind of declutter the room, and I'm kind of looking at this dancer's movements in the top right in this sort of setting with the flowy fabrics, with the like perhaps that color palette, and piecing all those things. As photographers and creatives, we're very visual, and we can piece all those things together. So would it kind of turn into this editorial of like a dancer at home, like an elaborate training from home story with like a big fashion take on it? I don't know why I'm so... I guess movement is kind of my safety net. It's kind of my crux, my crutch, in like because I shoot a lot of sport and I don't want to just suddenly go sport then fashion. Let's keep a little bit of movement in it, because then if all the fashion stuff looks crap, I know I can take a good picture of someone moving. So there's a little bit of that. So that is kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm starting to look at sourcing models. I'm not sure whether I want to cast a dancer or go through a modeling agency and get a model who also dances. So it's dance first and they also model, or is it a model first and they also dance? I would love to get someone who is really strong looking, like the guy in this picture here. On the girl, actually, just to get the definition in the muscles. I think that would really help add to the story. There are models who kind of move well, but are they going to have that definition? Are they going to have that true dancer physique? So that is something that I'm looking at. So these ladies here, I think they're all with agencies. They're all actually dancers, and then that is things to consider. I'll probably start, or at least I have started to piece together a folder of different models who can dance, and once I finalize the team with hair, makeup and styling, that is when I will start to kind of show them the models that I've been looking at, get their feedback on it, because things to consider, the stylist might have clothing in mind that is going to look better on one model compared to the other. Hair, makeup, do we want short hair, do we want long hair? Are certain model, do we have to dye the hair? I know that striking image was kind of the center pin of this whole thing, but do we have to dye their hair? And can we make something else? Can we tie in that color palette some other way? So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I was doing a little bit of research into this morning whilst I was working away. Let me get an image up here which like totally hit the nail on the head of what I was kind of looking for. Did I screenshot it? I screenshotted it. I can't remember this photographer's name. I found them on Instagram somewhere. So this probably gives you a sense. If visually I have not been making sense, this kind of will, I mean, no idea is original, right? Because that is pretty much like bang on, very similar location to what I've been looking at. You've got someone moving in fabric. This is the same story, although I do think these two images are very different in different locations. But it's along the lines of kind of where I am wanting to go with it. I've got 3 different screens here. My eyes are dancing all over the place, so hopefully I don't look like a maniac. So that is kind of like, that is pretty much the nail on the head. Isn't that crazy that like I've gone through this whole process of the mind map at the start, spending hours on it, tying in the movement, because I'm used to shooting sports stuff and I want to keep an element of movement to it. Looking at photographers like Jacob Sutton and how he integrates dancers into his work, and kind of his early work there was a lot of sport, and I know he did a lot of snowboarding stuff, and then he moved on to like incorporating dance and that into it, and he shoots kind of fashion images, all those different influences, trying to come up with like perhaps as an original idea as possible, a little bit out of my comfort zone. And lo and behold, I'm on Instagram today and I stumble across this photographer's work, and yeah, that's kind of what I was wanting to do or looking to do. The only one of the big differences would be kind of I'm just thinking out loud as this comes to my head at the moment. Like I was saying about having a strong dancer and having those really exaggerated, like strong movements in it to keep an element of strength in the story mixed in with that, at home stuff. I've just remembered like some other images that I've got bookmarked here. Let me just get these up for you. moodboard down, my folder. I don't want you guys to see my other desk, my second screen desktop, because it is a mess. We went into stage 2 here, and we were looking at, I think I saved it as a PDF here, final moodboard. Yes, here we are. So there's an element of, I want there to be an element of that kind of dancer at home thing going on. So let me just move this so you can see the whole mood board. So we have our studio here, Craxton Studios. We have these movements with the studio in mind. And then we have this sort of like fashion editorial element to it here. This is a photographer called Glenn Lackford, shot the Calvin Klein story. I think that, I don't know if it's just because it completely fits into the color palette that I was looking at, or if it's just a great image and I was like, oh, I kind of wish I would shoot stuff like that. But I love that sort of stuff. And just keeping an element, a light-hearted movement element to it, tied in with some of the movements we've got here, shot at like a house where there could be a room that the dancer uses as like a practice studio. I'm like so set on everything tying together and it like being realistic that it's difficult for me to let go and kind of be like, you can shoot unrealistic stuff, it's totally fine, it doesn't need to like actually make sense. You don't have to have the viewer go like, oh, well, that's highly unlikely that they would be living in a house like that, or what would what are the chances of this girl sitting in a, why is that chair there? I have to stop thinking a bit practically and kind of just relax and let my not be so inhibited by realism. Let go of it a little bit. Quite often I can do that with my work, and movement and stuff. If I'm on a shoot and someone does a weird movement and we take a frame of it, it's like, well, that looks a bit weird, doesn't it? But I mean, look at any photographer's work. It's like, why would she be lying there wearing that hat on a wooden floor? It doesn't have to be completely real, Rich. It can just, you can let yourself go a little bit, Why is that girl standing there naked? Oh yeah, you have to have a account here. Trunk Archive, by the way. Check that out if you're looking to do research. They have a massive library of amazing photographers. I think I'm going to start the process of wrapping up because it'll probably take me 5 minutes to wrap up. So if anyone has any questions or would like to give me feedback on how I'm going about moodboarding this, and if they see any like holes in my game where I can get further references, get different locations, how can I cast a dancer? I did have a little go on Facebook yesterday to search for London Dance Network groups, but I didn't have that much joy, and perhaps I'm being a bit too picky with like, yeah, they need to be a strong dancer, practicing, maybe a shaved head, willing to dye their hair. So maybe I can begin to let go of that a little bit. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you are subscribed. I'm reading from my script here. Make sure you're subscribed. I was on Mike Wright's podcast recently. Once I'm finished with this stream, I will put it in the description. We chatted for an hour basically about kind of my journey, his journey, how we got into photography, why we started photography. We talked about assisting different photographers, the importance of assisting. We talked about YouTube, this whole YouTube world and photography on it, and we also talked about well, Mike likes to break down lighting setups and we talked about how I lit a few different things, and we go into examples and stuff like that. So I will link that below. I've also got a video called my 5 favorite photographers on YouTube. Check that out. Kind of similar channels to me, I guess. And yeah, there's so much more stuff I would like to talk about, but we've been on here for 45 minutes, so I really must go and do the rest of my to-do list. You know, I've got a t-shirt to return. I've listed my keyboard on eBay today. I've bought a new keyboard. This one's too noisy. It's a mechanical keyboard. It drives Helen crazy. Got to make a dentist appointment. I've got to send off some work to potential clients. That's the most important thing. Okay, thank you everyone for watching. It has been a pleasure. I'm glad this stream stayed okay and stayed healthy. Thank you, Alid, for your questions, for your input. Thank you for the likes, guys. Make sure you subscribe. I'm going to try and fiddle about and press stop streaming. I'll see you on the next one. I'll try and do this every Friday maybe whilst I work through this thing, and then eventually we get to a point where I have a finished shoot retouched and I'm sending it out to clients, and you guys can come along for that journey as well. Thank you everyone. See you next time. Bye.